Enter a world of dreams.
Laura, tell me what you saw in your dream.
I told you, Dr. Newberry. Santa Claus.
A world of silence.
Subject may be making contact.
I don't want to see the future or the past. I just want to be normal.
A world of madness.
No one is normal.
A world that can't be ignored.
She likes it, loves it. She can't resist it. She wants to penetrate his mind, see what he sees.
He was a little boy, and then something happened. Something terrible.
Because when the dream is over,
I don't know what's going on here, but whatever it is,
the nightmare begins. The Yuletide terror returns.
His brain was surgically reconstructed.
If you don't mind my saying, I'd have pulled his plug.
Then his life was of value.
With the saga that shocked a nation. Robert Culp, Silent Night, Deadly Night, Part 3, Better Watch Out. Supported by full trade and consumer advertising. POP includes a full-size poster.
Hello, welcome to Film Fury Commentary. Tonight we're doing Silent Night, Deadly Night 3, Better Watch Out. I'm Rick Patterson of Film Fury Entertainment, Monster Kid Central, and Monster Kid Fury podcast. And I'm joined by my wife and producer.
I'm Callie. Hello.
And full disclosure, this is her third Silent Night, Deadly Night movie, technically, because I started off the series with her with part 2, because we all know half of part 2 is just part 1 all over again.
Yeah.
So how do you feel about embarking on Silent Night, Deadly Night 3?
Well, before I get into that, I'll talk about what I think of Silent Night 2.
Mm-hmm.
I thoroughly enjoyed the performance by Eric Freeman as Ricky. I think he did a phenomenal job. That was his first role ever?
Yes, he showed up for an audition for one of the other characters, actually, and ended up getting the lead.
Well, I'm glad he did, because, yeah, I watched it and thought that not only was he well-suited for the character, but he made really great decisions on how to play him.
I agree. It's actually too bad he couldn't come back for the third one, but I think by that time he had went kind of on the down low after what was perceived to be a failure with part 2, when critics attacked his performance and pretty much everyone and everything involving the movie. I think everyone just kind of went back to what they were doing. Lee Harry, the director, he went back to editing. Elizabeth Caton, she went on to do other acting, but everyone else in that film just kind of just segued into other things, unfortunately.
That's a shame, because they did really great, and I thought that the gore effects were great as well.
Because you know what? If Dude wasn't available in Killer Clowns to play the sheriff or the police officer.
Dave.
Yeah, I could see Eric Freeman playing that character, actually. The body types are kind of similar. I could have seen that. No problem. But the version that we're going to do the commentary for is actually streaming on an app called MovieSphere, which you can get through to Amazon Prime. You can currently get like a 14-day trial, which is neat, and they seem to have a pretty good catalog of movies. And I think it's $5 after that. But this is the same version that's on the Vestron Blu-ray of parts 3 through 5. So there's no difference once you unpause the same time as us. Everything should match for the most part. And whenever you're ready, babe.
3, 2, 1.
So we start off here with the Lionsgate Entertainment symbol, which is everyone is probably familiar with now thanks to the Saw films. And the reason they own the Silent Night, Deadly Night movies is kind of a long, involved history. The original Silent Night, Deadly Night was released by a company called USA Home Video. Now, this was during the time where you had VHS big boxes and whatnot. And the kind of outlier, the thing they used to kind of maybe stand out from bigger studios releasing VHS at the time, were these cool silver stickers on their VHS tapes. They also owned a company called FHE, which was Family Home Entertainment. Now, where USA Video was releasing Supergirl, the original Silent Night, Deadly Night, FHE was used for G.I. Joe, Transformers, TV episodes, and other family animated films of that nature. Now, at one point, USA Video ended up merging into a company called IBE Entertainment. They're the ones who actually was the production company for Silent Night, Deadly Night 2, 3 at that point. Then they turned into yet another company, which was Live Entertainment. That stuck around for a few years, transformed into Artisan Entertainment, who helped to release the Blair Witch Project, and then ultimately merged with Lionsgate. So that's why we have that Lionsgate Entertainment logo at the beginning.
That's an incredibly long journey.
It is. Now, this film was shot in 1989, shot and released a mere months before Twin Peaks went into production. The reason I mentioned Twin Peaks is you have many David Lynch and Twin Peaks connections in terms of the cast of the film. The most noteworthy cast member of this film is Richard Beymer, who starred in West Side Story, the film version. Ultimately went into retirement, semi-retirement, because I guess he was disillusioned with Hollywood. And this was actually his second film after he came out of retirement.
Wow.
Now, I don't know if David Lynch saw this movie. I don't know if he saw that and said, hey, I want to get Richard Beymer to play Benjamin Horne. But I like to think maybe that's how it happened. Now, the actress we see here is named Samantha Scully. She doesn't have a lot of work. She's done 4 films total. 2 of the films allotted to her filmography is actually Silent Night, Deadly Night 3 and Silent Night, Deadly Night 4. Now, she's not in Part 4 outside of images from Part 3 being played on a television.
What?
So, but she still gets the screen credit.
Oh.
She was also in the action movie Best of the Best with Eric Roberts, and a film called Bloodsuckers, which was made in 1991. Now, I first saw this movie on VHS when I was a teenager, and I just kept finding this similarity of her facial structure to Jennifer Connelly. So I don't know if the casting person was like, hey, if we could get Jennifer Connelly, that would be great. Well, she's not going to be in this movie, so we'll find a stunt double. So the first time Callie saw this, she obviously didn't have a history with the movie, so she didn't know the character was blind because, of course, this is a dream sequence.
Mm-hmm. And I thought she was dead when she was lying on the bed or table.
One of the unique things about the third in this series is that to me, it's the most notable cast out of all the films. And I'm not sure if that was linked to the fact that cult filmmaker Monty Hellman directed this. Monty Hellman was a well-known cult filmmaker. He started out editing for ABC television, doing documentaries and whatnot. Ultimately went to work for Roger Corman, where he directed Beast from the Haunted Cave, and then was used quite a bit to direct extra scenes for movies that Roger would acquire from overseas and would need to punch them up for the drive-in crowd.
Bill Moseley, everybody.
This was Bill Moseley's second notable film. His first was actually Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. And the way he was able to get that job was because, as basically, I guess you would say, a sizzle reel of his work, he decided to direct a short called The Texas Chainsaw Manicure, where he essentially played the character that Hitchhiker turns into in Part 2. Toby Hooper was given the video by someone. He loved it, and he brought in Bill Moseley for an audition. Moseley would 2 years later, get the noteworthy role of Johnny in the Night of the Living Dead remake.
Oh.
Now, Samantha Scully actually read for the character of Jerry, which is the girlfriend of her brother in this film. Apparently, the reason she did not get that role was because she refused to show herself topless, which Laura Herring, who got the role of Jerry, had no problem with. Laura Herring is the other David Lynch connection, which I'll talk about when we see her on camera.
That's actually a really nice setup. Even though the Santa looks kind of creepy.
From everything I dug up on Hellman and why he chose to direct this, he felt that it was an interesting experiment. The entire budget for this movie was $250,000. And the original screenplay for it was actually shelved, basically. The original script became Silent Night, Deadly Night 4 later, which is why you have such an elaborate amount of writers. If you notice, there were 5 writers listed, and there's another writer who's uncredited. The original screenplay, which was The Initiation, which became Silent Night, Deadly Night 4, was actually written by Arthur Gorson, who actually became a producer of documentaries and music videos for bands like Korn, and a screenwriter by the name of J.J. Smith, who has his own Korn connection by being the writer of one of the worst Children of the Corn movies, Children of the Corn Revelations.
Not corn with a K.
No, Corn with a C at that point. Now, the other writers listed on the film is Monty Hellman himself, Monty Hellman's daughter, who also plays Richard Beymer's assistant. We see her with this great 90s kind of hairdo, as well as uncredited rewrites from Carlos Laszlo. Now, that is actually a pseudonym because the writer's name is actually Rex Weiner. He was a writer who wrote a series of stories that ultimately became adapted by him for the screenplay of The Adventures of Ford Fairlane, directed by Rennie Harlan. So I guess he took the pseudonym because he didn't want to be embarrassed, I guess. I don't know. Now, going back to the cast, it's really amazing to me because, and maybe it's an old school actor mentality, but I don't see Richard Beymer phoning this performance in. Like he brings his A game. And now, of course, we have to get into the obligation of showing flashbacks from the original films. I'm not sure if Hellman wanted this to be necessarily come off as a sequel to the first 2 Silent Night movies, because what's very bizarre is they never connect it to part 2, which of course you can say, well, part 2 has so much of part 1 anyways. But literally, there's no mention of 2 separate brothers. You never hear about Billy being the older brother and Ricky being the younger one.
Mm-hmm.
And in all the flashbacks, they only use the footage of Billy.
They never show Ricky as a baby.
No. Now, that may have had something to do with legalities. Maybe the second one was produced with another production company. I keep thinking there had to be some reason to not refer to the second film at all. Even when the police shoot, quote unquote Ricky, which it's not. It's very bizarre. And I wasn't able to find anything in research on that.
It's pretty intense in that.
The Silent Night, Deadly Night films, US Video obviously seemed to back the original, wholeheartedly as a project they were involved with. Part 2 seemed to be a heavy-duty cash grab. And of course, all sequels are. And that could have something to do with why there is no footage of part 2 in this one. because though it doesn't mention which producer in general wanted part 2 to be made the way it was, the idea was just to re-edit part 2 into a movie unto itself, just to make some dollars real quick. But the studio kept making them. Silent Night, Deadly Night 2 was in 1987, followed by this one in 89, followed by Part 4 in 1990, and finally Part 5 in 91. Unfortunately, Silent Night turned into the type of film series which is a sequel in name only. Part 4 has nothing to do with the events of the first 3 movies, as well as Part 5. It's another standalone story. It seems like they just decided to do what was originally going to be the plan for the Halloween film series, which is just to have sequels that are standalone Christmas-related horror films. So now we have our character of Laura going into her second sleep experiment. So, like a lot of mad scientists in movies and whatnot, there's no real clear indication of why Beymer's character has decided to embark on this experiment of getting Laura to go into the dreams of his patient in the next room, which is Ricky Caldwell, who's been in a coma for 6 years. Like the Friday the 13th movies, if you start adding the years from when one film took place to another, they should have been far, far into the future. Because, of course, with part 2 being in 1987, and we're 6 years later, we would have been beyond the 90s at that point, or the early 90s.
The first glass of water.
Apparently, that's how you help someone who's come out of a nightmare state. Give them some water. It's a really great shot there of Beymer. Just a really unique looking old school actor. Apparently, he lived on a commune after he did his first retirement stint after West Side Story, after he won a Golden Globe. Apparently, the industry got stressful for him, and he went and lived on a commune for a couple years. Apparently, he was actually happy about being involved with this movie. He just wanted to act again.
Yeah, when we watched the documentary portion for Silent Night 2, everybody seemed really happy to be a part of that production.
Well, we were at a unique time in the film industry during this period. The home video market gave not only other filmmakers, but actors an opportunity to work again when major studios at the time weren't hiring them. This was also the period where blockbuster filmmaking had really become a thing throughout the 80s into the 90s. So again, creating I guess you would say, alternative film community gave these actors an opportunity to work again.
Remember, I warned you this required kind of courage. Certain safe abilities. Right.
I'm not scared.
You should be.
This is where we find out that she's psychic.
Maybe it was wrong for me to expect someone so young.
Now, once the original script was scrapped, Hellman had 1 week to write a new screenplay, which is probably the explanation for the additional writers. The uncredited writer for this one was a gentleman named Steve Grados, Stephen Grados, who actually worked with Hellman on his film Iguana, which starred Everett McGill, another David Lynch kind of connection because he ultimately starred as Ed on Twin Peaks. If you've seen pictures of Hellman, you can definitely tell that's his daughter. She has his nose. Outside of his directing, Hellman's other notable thing was producing and just doing different production levels in films. He actually directed second unit on RoboCop, the original RoboCop. One of his sequences was when Murphy is chasing Vonnegut and his people after the robbery, and when Vonnegut throws one of his henchmen out in order to slow the cops down. That entire sequence was choreographed and shot by Hellman.
I like his headgear. You can see his brain, and when he was in the dream sequence, there was like liquid sloshing around in there. It's a pretty cool contraption.
I don't know though; it's so absurd. I'm not sure why they decided to come up with that because he was only shot. You didn't really see any substantial brain damage or anything.
Was he shot in the head?
He wasn't shot in the head. That's what was laughable. I'm just like, okay, or maybe when he fell, he hit the ground hard or something. But you don't see anything like that. Laura's not a very likable character to me. I don't know if that's something they wanted to add into the script because of her blindness. Maybe she's just a little passive aggressive. I don't know. The two extras playing with their baby here, they're very, I don't know, very aggressive with that baby.
The guy is.
It's like, do you know how to play with a baby? Because you're about to rip its arm off. What are you doing? What is happening? So the production schedule for this is rather insane. So in February, they go ahead and decide they're going to rewrite the script. They spent March making the movie. April was spent editing. By July, they had a film festival release. And then in November, it came out on home video.
That's fast.
It's a terribly small window for a movie. Now, the picture was edited by Hellman, but he did not receive credit for it. He edited the film on a non-linear system, which means he was probably using 3/4 inch video. And then the editor who was actually attributed with the credit actually made the cuts to the film itself in terms of the film negative. And I'm not sure what that is because Hellman was listed as editor for numerous films for Corman.
I like this watch.
It was the first time I'd ever seen anything like that in a movie.
Like a Braille watch.
Yeah. Of course, now everything's digital, so I'm sure. I'm sure they just have something that tells you the time, literally. So Laura's power is basically she can see the future, and as she describes later, weird things.
Hey. Excuse me. Hey, what's wrong with you?
Just a little dead. That's all. And she's awoken from her dream by Eric Darry. So you could see it spelled simply as Dare, but the way he spells the name is capital D, little A, capital R, little E. So Darry, I guess is how you would pronounce it, right?
Well, there's a space. It's DA space RE.
Darry. So he has a beautiful locks of hair here, very curly hair, which he does not have playing Leo Johnson on Twin Peaks, which is their second David Lynch Twin Peaks connection. I like him much more as Leo, which I guess you could argue is a cliched character because he's an abusive truck driver and husband to Shelley Johnson on the show. Here he's attempting to play the sensitive brother, touching his sister's hair and shoulder in a weird kind of way.
Yeah, it was her belt.
Is that what she was playing with?
Yeah.
It just seemed odd to do a cutaway of that per se. It's like, why did you do that?
Because they're joking about his girlfriend.
Now, like any 80s horror film, you have to have some pervy guy somewhere. And in this case, he becomes the catalyst for Ricky coming out of his coma. It's actually kind of funny how there's little elements that are similar to Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers, in terms of you have the killer in a coma who's awoken by something from their past. Halloween 4 wouldn't come out for another year. Actually, no, Halloween 4 came out. That's right. Halloween 4 is 1988. So maybe Hellman saw, or one of the writers saw Halloween 4 and said, hey, let's have him in a coma. It's also an incredible coincidence that they're doing these experiments to Caldwell during Christmas. And what a coincidence that a pervy drunk Santa would come into his room.
Maybe I might want to recreate that as a Halloween costume.
Ricky Caldwell, Silent Night, Deadly Night 3 costume.
Yep. Headgear.
Now, the interesting part is for a movie called Silent Night, Deadly Night 3, which is associated with a killer Santa, this is the only time we see anyone in a Santa suit.
No!
Our character, Laura, has a very busy day. She's gone into her experiments with the scientist, and now she's hanging out with her therapist. And here we get an exposition dump of how Laura and her brother lost their parents.
Laura, I want to talk more about those unusual experiences you say you've been having since you were a child. Seeing things, if you will.
Having worked with not super professional actors, but folks who either want to be actors or have a little acting experience, a lot of actors need something to do physically during a performance. And apparently the gentleman playing the therapist felt the need to keep swiveling in his chair. I think he wanted to be on Star Trek, really.
Those chairs swivel.
My grandmother said, all our thoughts are just pieces of one big thought. We just think about the little pieces.
Like most horror films during the time for the home video market, you'd always find these really cool and outlandish taglines on the posters or the VHS box. And Silent Night, Deadly Night 3's tagline was, when the nightmare ends, the real terror begins.
Ooh.
Yeah. Somebody got paid a good $20-$30 for that. When it was released on home video, This title was $89.98 if you wanted to purchase it. That's cool.
He puts his back, like, he faces away from her a lot.
Which is really interesting because it's like, okay, if he's figuring, she's blind, she doesn't need to see me, it's still kind of rude.
But you can tell. Like, if you just close your eyes and you hear somebody and their voice changes, or you hear the squeaking of his chair as he's swiveling.
Maybe that's why Laura is outwardly rude to other people. My therapist doesn't feel me, doesn't get me. Can't even look in.
Let people help you cross the street, even if you can't do it yourself. Trust people. Who said you have to be the world champion?
Now, figures were never quoted in terms of a dollar amount, but Live Entertainment indicated that part 3 was so successful on home video that it made more than the first 2 films.
What? I mean, is that possible?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Okay.
I hate picking on actors, especially ones who, for the most part, were just trying to do their job, but her scream is horrible. She's got the worst scream.
Was that her screaming?
Uh-huh.
Why is she screaming?
Because she had a vision of Ricky in the chair, her therapist chair.
Oh, so she's not asleep. This is like a vision.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So now Ricky has been brought out of his coma thanks to the drunken, perverted Santa Claus.
Who's dead?
And the nurse that Laura got cranky with is about to meet with her doom.
She's not going to make it to Christmas.
Now, why a general receptionist nurse has a scalpel on her desk, I'm not quite sure. We know a few nurses. We should ask them, do you guys carry scalpels around and leave them on your desk? I looked it up. This apartment building here is still in operation. It was never torn down or anything. And we are introduced to Laura Herring, who portrays Jerry, her brother's girlfriend. And Laura Herring. She was the one willing to pop her top, so she got the job as Jerry. That being said, though, I think she would have played a better Laura, actually. Simply because she's a better actress in the long run. She ultimately worked with David Lynch on Mulholland Drive years later. So Ricky has now escaped the hospital in a series of sequences, which I'm pretty certain had no permits. They look like, just pull over and grab your shot kind of camera framing here.
Oh, there goes that psychic connection.
Now, one of the issues I have with the script overall is that there's no clear indicator of why Ricky is acting the way he is, because there's moments where he's lumbering around like Frankenstein, and then other moments where he's very calculated in stalking and killing people. Yeah, that freeway on-ramp scene, that had to be a non-permitted shot, because it would have been a fortune to get a permit to shut down the interstate for that scene. Laura and Jerry don't get along very well. Laura feels that she's being pandered to by Jerry. And now we're back into flashbacks from the original film again. Now, in the original film, this particular Santa, which is walking up on the kids, is not Billy. He's actually the janitor for the orphanage. A deaf janitor for the orphanage who's trying to surprise the kids and does not hear the authorities say, get away from the kids.
And was that meant to be Billy? Oh no.
Yeah. See, so that's such a bizarre part because they're essentially editing it as if that was Ricky. See, that's what I mean. It's so bizarre the way they do that. Okay, now this scene here where Ricky is hitchhiking. Piru obviously is an actual place in Southern California. That's where they shot most of the movie. Once we get to Granny's house.
The serial killer band.
Now this scene again, Monty Hellman. I don't. Again, he's a very competent filmmaker. I'm not sure why he wrote or directed such a ridiculous scene because I don't think he was meaning it to be ridiculous. But the fact that someone would pick up this guy in a gown with this headgear and then have this conversation is just it's just funny. Hey, buddy, Merry Christmas. And of course, it being Christmas, Ricky is getting triggered constantly by the color red.
Head transplant.
I love how the driver said that because that was the thing in 1989. Oh, head transplants. Everybody's got head transplants.
I mean, that's what they look like.
And we don't even get to see Ricky kill the guy. How that happened specifically. How did he get him to pull over or anything like that? I really think Hellman just approached this literally as an experimental horror film and didn't really care about any
more water.
Yep, more water for the blind girl when she comes out of her slumber. Now I will say the DP did a wonderful job here because the lighting on Laura Herring's face is like really well done.
It is a really nice looking shot.
Laura Herring came to the scene with a film from Canon called Lambada, The Forbidden Dance, where she plays a native girl from the Amazon jungle who decides to bring the attention of the destruction of the rainforest to America through dance.
Interpretive dance.
It was one of 2 Lambada movies that came out the same year. There was The Forbidden Dance, and then Lambada Set the Night on Fire, or something to that effect. Now, the movie the gas attendant is watching is The Terror, and the connection to that movie is not only it being a Roger Corman movie, but it was partially directed by Hellman. The Terror was a movie that Roger Corman decided to make after he had shot another Poe adaptation. And he felt that the sets were just so tremendous. It's like, hey, they're going to tear them down in a couple days. Let's make a movie. And they literally made a movie without a script. And people just kind of contributed parts of the storyline and the directing. Corman directed a few days. Jack Nicholson did a little bit of it. Francis Ford Coppola threw in.
No, it's a hodgepodge movie.
Yeah, exactly. Now, this has got to be the oddest, subpar victim of a slasher movie. A gas station attendant who decides to ask his girlfriend, wife, whatever it is on the other end of the phone, to hold on for a second because he wants her to talk dirty to him again like the night before. And
But
of course, he's got to forget his Christmas hat. That way he can become the next victim. Because red triggers it all.
Anything Santa.
Now, that is a continuation from part 2 because it's in part 2 when Ricky's therapist comes up with the theory that something related to red will affect him. With the great line of, "Red car. What do you think of that, Doc?" And his girlfriend decides, well, it's part of his shtick. He's actually there listening and acting like he's not listening. And she will proceed to talk dirty. The Terror was actually shot in color, so that's just a black and white TV. Which, yes, for youngins out there was something called a black and white TV, even in the 80s. Granny's house, which is in Piru, California, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, is still there and still used by film production to this day.
I do not like how these lights are blinking. They are like twitching.
I do remember Christmas trees having that type of lighting at the time.
But it's spazzing out.
I have a lot of issues with the costume designer for this movie because I understand you read the script and it says their grandmother, but they dress her like the grandma from Looney Tunes. Like, she really should have a Tweety bird right now, given attitude in a cage.
I'm not sure what she put on that little tray. Like, it was in the middle of a living room, but not food.
Yeah, maybe it was candies, nuts, maybe. I don't know. Good looking turkey. If it's a real turkey.
I think it is because it looks like she really is basting it.
But I can't look at a turkey baster without thinking of Don't Breathe.
Oh my gosh.
I think if my wife saw that movie, she'd probably think the same.
I don't need to watch it. You've already described it.
It's one of the best times I ever had at a movie, was hearing the audience freak the fuck out during Don't Breathe as he shambles towards her with a turkey baster filled with his own sperm so he can impregnate it.
That's what I mean. I don't need to see that.
I'd like to talk to a gynecologist or doctor. Could that work? Is that a thing? Is that possible?
Oh my god.
Jeep Cherokees became like a constant in horror films, I noticed over the years. Hideaway, just numerous Watchers, just a whole bunch of horror films that always seemed like, oh, we'll get a Cherokee. Grandma's got herself a little buffet going on there for her grandkids who are still on the way.
That's where you can tell she's also psychic.
Laura Herring also starred as John Travolta's wife in the Thomas Jane Punisher film adaptation.
I don't understand the hate for the pit bulls. They make excellent dogs.
I kind of wish Hellman, since he was kind of a radical from the 60s, I kind of wish he had made the grandma, a little more spicier, just a little different, instead of doing such a cliched version of her grandmother. Another weird cutaway to make it a point to show a close-up of her putting the phone back down, moving it there. That's kind of weird. Because it has no bearing later in the movie.
Well,
can we go to out of focus on this shot? Can we do that? Sure, go ahead.
Because remember, Girly follows the line.
Yeah, I guess, but was it that? It's
the head.
I don't know what she's making there. I don't know if that's the chestnut dressing she was talking about. Now, where I'm confused is how Ricky has been able to beat them to Grandma's house. For the simple fact that he escaped after they had left. So what we have here is the usual cliche in movies and storytelling where cops and reporters don't get along. In fact, when I was in high school, I wrote a horror story, and two of the key characters were a cop and a reporter who don't get along, and it was terribly gory. But my English teacher in her notes said, I wish it wasn't so gory, but I do appreciate the drama of the strife between the law enforcement agency and the reporter. Now here we have the other notable cast member of the film, Robert Culp from I Spy, and what I personally knew him from at the time, Greatest American Hero, where he just played a wonderful character, a pain in the ass FBI agent that wants to use Ralph for the super suit to solve crimes and basically keep America safe. Robert Culp was one of these great fucking actors, just old school. He does what a British actor will do to less than good dialogue in a movie, where you can just have a character say anything. If it comes out of a Brit, it sounds perfectly fine. It gives it agency and importance. Robert Culp was able to do that with exposition like he's doing here. This long hallway shot as they throw out information about Ricky Caldwell. I keep thinking maybe George Clooney sort of patterned himself after Culp in terms of his mannerisms. Every once in a while, you'll see Culp do this kind of crick of the neck thing while doing dialogue, which Clooney did for the longest time.
I like my head covering.
I think it's so funny that he took the time to put a beanie on, but didn't put it completely on. I guess he didn't look at himself in the mirror. It's just such a weird performance as the character. Like, I'm sure Bill Moseley, who's a horror fan, saw part two. And I'm wondering if he went to Hellman and said, should I play him kind of like Ricky in the first one? And Hellman's like, oh no, this is what we're doing.
You need to be sedate.
Went to a telephone has been used. We're trying to see if we can make it free. What?
I like to think that Beymer and Culp enjoyed working together because they were old school actors. I think it's real funny how this cop is suddenly becoming a video forensics person. Did you hear that? He said her name.
And what about the equipment?
The equipment's a trip because it's professional half-inch video editing equipment that they're using, which is not the same as security VTRs, videotape recorders.
Especially at a hospital.
Exactly. There's really no reason for him to even have a camera in there aside from you need it for the exposition later. I also like how there's a old school boombox back there on the bookshelf for, I guess, for whoever's hanging out in the office and wants some tunes.
Oh, this guy.
Now, this guy could not have been a real actor. I don't think he was a real actor. He just kind of rings like he was a production person, maybe a capper, and Hellman was like, hey, we don't have an actor for this. Can you play this role?
He looks so uncomfortable in his gun holster.
I think it was meant for another actor. He's like, it's kind of tight, Mr. Hellman. It's like, it's all right. You're just on for one scene.
Oh, jeez.
He also kind of had that face like he was reading from a cue card when he did his dialogue. Now, Ricky, again, he's been drawn to this place because of Laura. So you think he would know, I don't know, this is Laura's place, but here he seems like, oh, it's her. So I guess he's actually surprised. I'm also disappointed we did not get to see Ricky eat any of his Christmas food.
He's not hungry.
Oddly, it feels like there should be more scenes with him as the character. Like there's huge, portions of the movie that we don't have any idea of where he is or what he's doing. Guess he doesn't like the use of his thumb or something. Gotta excuse me. Just trying to stop my cat from eating my Tweety bird. And of course, grandmas always have a spare gift under the tree for a stranger who shows up on their doorstep in the middle of the night. I'm also wondering if at some point the producers were like, that headgear looks horrible. Just give him a beanie.
Oh, no.
Why did you have to wrap in red? You couldn't give him a green backup Christmas gift.
She didn't know.
Mm-hmm. See, now, oddly, Laura is unnerved, but she didn't have an actual vision of her grandma being killed, which, again, makes the lore or mythology they're trying to create with her character and her powers sort of all over the place.
One would call it unreliable.
I guess that's what happens when you have 5 people writing the script.
Yay, they finally arrived to Grandma's.
Everyone's timing is like impeccably bad. They always show up a few minutes early or a few minutes late.
What's that on the ground?
I'm not sure.
Go on and I'll get the bags.
It's the tweaker lights.
Now, the only thing more all over the place outside of Bill Moseley's performance and his physical mannerisms is the score. It's composed by Stephen Souls. That's how he's credited here. Professionally, he goes by J. Stephen Souls. This is his only other notable film score outside of Space Truckers, a Stuart Gordon sci-fi action movie, sort of comedy at the same time. Souls actually toured with Bob Dylan back in the day. Ended up producing many other albums of the period for him. And he was married for 2 years to PJ Souls, who apparently decided to keep her husband's last name when she went into acting. Once again, the writer should have known better to have everyone so non-concerned about where the grandma is, or at least her brother, because of course he's more interested in getting Laura Herring upstairs. Which, when I saw this as a teenager, I understood totally where he was coming from.
Cheers, always right there by the fireplace. Grew up in this house. She knows the ranch.
Cheers. Here.
Cheers. What's the big deal? I can't cheers that.
We're going upstairs. We'll be back.
Where art thou, Grandma? The only person who's concerned can't find her.
The other funny thing is her change of wardrobe, because you get the idea through the editing. They left the hospital and went straight to Jerry's house. And when she woke up from her nightmare, she only had the white shirt on. She didn't have the 90210 Melrose Place vest under her jacket. I think this chick probably stopped acting because every audition she went to, they said, "Your eyebrows, you look just like Jennifer Connelly."
When she started that bath, when she got the food situation.
Because, baths and food is more important than Grandma.
Well, the funny part is, it's like the food doesn't even come into play later. I mean, you're just checking out the food situation for why, because, again, you're planning to get upstairs and get in the bath as quickly as possible.
And your grandma wouldn't leave the stove running with gas. Just saying.
I find it interesting how they chose to do no close-ups in this sequence. They're like, we'll just keep it on the wide shot. And of course, when you're, a psychic, clairvoyant, blind girl who doesn't know where her grandma is, the first thing you want to do is have a nice stiff drink.
Yep. Have a drink for Grandma, because we don't know where she is.
The film was so low budget, I can't imagine them having a second unit director, but maybe that's the reasoning for some of the odd shots. Monty Hellman continued a relationship with Live Entertainment because he actually got them to bankroll a portion of Reservoir Dogs after he read Tarantino's script for that movie. Herring's really on the skinny side of things in this movie, I noticed, because by the time you see her in The Punisher and definitely Mulholland Drive, she's much curvier. She got a little more meat on her.
That really is such a tiny tub.
Oh, that house was probably built in the 30s. People were tinier at the time. You could fit the entire 5 kid family in there to wash at the same time.
Yeah, that's true.
Which is the oddest question on the face of the planet. You're in the bathtub with her. I'm pretty sure she's doing what you were hoping she would do. Poor baby, she's like super pale too. Good lord. Again, your grandmother is missing.
Yeah.
Your nice, kindly grandmother who just lives alone.
Yeah.
In the middle of nowhere.
We're not concerned. These two.
And the unorthodox police investigation continues by dragging the scientists out to try to track down Laura, who we now have learned is being stalked by Ricky Caldwell because of the videotape. Yeah, by and of course, this is exposition that could have been, said at the hospital. I think that was probably the first time Robert Culp was ever given dialogue like "You're not blowing smoke up my ass." I think Robert Culp could have been a good replacement for Robert Stack on Unsolved Mysteries after he passed away.
Cell phone in your car.
This old school car phone becomes integral to the plot at certain points.
Oh my goodness.
Now we're back to another TV, and that is The Terror still playing, which is impossible because it's an 82-minute movie at the most. And by now, this would be like, a marathon showing of The Terror?
Yes, that's what we
If
surmised.
Jack Nicholson. I think his jeans were tighter than hers. So once again, they're just all about themselves. They don't care where the grandmother is, and we're gonna leave my drunk blind sister by herself while we.
He did mention going to look for grandma at the neighbors.
But they don't look. They do very
No, they
little.
do.
They knock on the door. That's all they do. They don't get really extensive with their search. And now Eric Darry does his best imitation of Jeff Bridges in Starman. The lighting, pretty cool here. See, he knocked once, and he's like, okay, nobody's here. Let's go.
I thought she was watching TV.
And again, it seems like traditional storytelling method for a horror film would be to literally show her being stalked by Ricky currently, like Ricky being in the house, do some cool shot of him literally feet away from her. But I guess Hellman was trying to subvert expectations for a film of this type. Eric Darby didn't really do much after Twin Peaks. I came across some footage of him at Twin Peaks Return, their premiere essentially, and yeah, he's lost his locks. He's completely shaved. Can we stop at Arby's? I'm hungry.
Isn't that insane? They're talking about talking on the phone
Mhm.
while driving.
Yeah, that's wild. And this scientist claims you can't do both simultaneously.
He doesn't like to do two important things at the same time. That's what he said.
And I don't recall thinking that way, but I'm pretty sure when I saw this movie, I was like, oh, wow, this guy thinks he's a phone in this movie.
So this cop is not only just a cop, he's also trying to hawk cell phones because he gets money off of his cell phone bill.
Maybe that's something one of the writers was going through and decided to throw it into the script.
Maybe. I mean, I appreciate it because it's different and quirky. But I do find it interesting that this was a conversation that was happening back in, you said 80s?
Yeah, 89, yeah.
Uh-huh.
The funny part, though, is it has no relevance to the rest of the movie, so it just feels like they were like, we need to hit this running time. Let's do some more with them in the car.
And this is Laura changing, wardrobe change again. But her brother's in the room. He's talking to her. And we talked about this. He's not turned away from her. Again, we kind of figured that it's because he's taking care of her mostly, since they were kids and all. But it's his sister, so it's not like
she wasn't bug ass naked, but I mean,
No.
she was in a bra, and I'm like, I don't know.
Well, again, it's not that big of a deal because they're siblings and there's no feelings like that towards each other. It's just they're worried about the grandma.
The lack of Eric Reed's acting prowess and his look as he's watching her is just kind of creepy. That's all I'm saying. I don't know. Maybe he liked her in real life, and unfortunately, it translated to a lot of the looks that he gives her. I don't know.
Oh, I see.
Because that smile, it was way too much of a flirtatious kind of, you're so pretty kind of face.
Let's give her another 15 minutes. Because grandma could show up in 15 minutes.
Then
And he's starved.
Then we'll finally call the police. Yeah. He could have easily given a call to the police, still made time with Laura in the bathtub, still ate some food, and then gawked at his sister in a bra, and the police would have finally gotten there. And now we get to have the deep moment where the scientist waxes philosophical about the universe and as a whole. and how it relates to his work and Caldwell and everything else.
We're going outside because I'm sure the old lady moved my car.
See, I keep thinking that footage could have been from when they shot the other scene, though.
When he scared her, yeah.
And they decided to use it again. They were like, "Oh, let's make it look like their search is a little more, productive." So many shots of her looking around. It's just like, you're disturbed, not too disturbed. You're apprehensive, but not too apprehensive.
She seems like she can see.
You could play with your lapel now and gently touch your chest. It's just such weird choices.
I will say that this coming up was a little freaky.
It's an attempt at a scare, but I don't know. I think it is unsuccessful, really. Because, of course, if you made this movie today, it would be more of a Flanagan J-horror kind of scare. Subtle, where you would cut to behind her and then see Ricky right outside the window. Of course, you would try to be scarier by her not knowing that he's outside. I don't understand why she had the pause in between her screaming.
What's going on? TV trash.
I love how that's how he found it, but we don't get to see it damaged like that. We don't see the Jeep.
We don't need to see it.
Which is funny. It's like, so Ricky decided to drive it like a fucking maniac and flip it over, apparently.
Like, where'd he get the keys? Did he leave his keys in the vehicle?
I guess. Maybe Bill Moseley only worked on the movie for a few days at a time. Maybe that's what it was. Maybe he wasn't there for the entire shoot. I don't know.
Yeah, see, she.
I love the
picks up
look
cord.
Jerry has here when she comes to the end of the phone line. Because they cut away really quick, but when she looks over at Laura, she does it very accusingly. Oh, they stop for gas. Again, the whole thing about Red, like, we watch these movies, so we know Red activates them. So I don't know why they wrote that dialogue. But I don't know what's funnier, the fact that the cop is just like completely, just like, huh, yeah, dead body with a head on the table, or the doctor who's probably never seen anything like that in his life, and he's just, Ricky, can you hear me? Do you want to build a snowman? Self-reflective scientist.
Yep. He's apologetic.
I should have let you sleep. Mad exposition dump.
Oh my gosh.
This is what we're doing.
So this dude has a cell phone in his car, which apparently are not cheap, but his car looks so banged up and worse for wear.
I don't know. For cops, that could have been new hotness for them.
I don't know. He strikes me as the kind of guy who would keep up on his stuff. He's not a grunt.
Well, you got to remember, it's not his vehicle, literally. It's probably given to him by the department.
But we won't tell you what happened.
And again, with the way Ricky operates makes no sense. So he's outside the window, he's watching her, she freaks out, and instead of, beginning the attack, if you will, he walks off somewhere, and we just don't get to see where.
We don't either.
That's the old, I'm going to slam my arm through this cheap door trick.
See, she's giving up. Oh no, stab you.
Let me break the other side of the door so I can get this out.
Yeah.
Thanks for the weapon. But he doesn't continue his attack. He's like, all right, I'm going to retreat now and figure out what I'm going to do. It's so bizarre.
He'll kill us all.
But we're LAPD, so I'll shoot him dead. Especially if he's black. What? I think all LA cops talk like that at the time. Hey, we try to get him to surrender, but we usually kill him.
There's no way that you can trap him alive.
Talk about him like he's an animal.
Trap him.
Yep.
Here, Ricky, come here.
Use Laura as bait.
And one of the writers decided, I'm going to make comments about how we treat the guilty in this country.
Science is the only way to restore our innocence.
Here we go. Oh no, he's not.
But he delivers the dialogue with such confidence. He's not thinking, I'm in a car at like 1 o'clock in the morning. At one point, I won a Golden Globe for West Side Fucking Story. No, he's an actor doing his job, and there's a lot of honor to that.
Yep. Let me pull over at
I'm
the side of the
so
road 'cause I
angry
gotta
at our
take a piss.
conversation about how we treat the guilty that I gotta take a piss. Which you could have done at the gas station. That's why you never trust a scientist in your vehicle. Take your keys. You got my expensive soap. Poor baby, she had to get some acting skills because she's really good in The Punisher. She's really good in The Mulholland Drive. I would say her acting was bad in the Lombardo movie too, but I don't remember her acting. You sure about that? All right, let's conga our way out of the house. And make a cut. Make a cut. Make a cut.
They left the door open.
They walk out of frame and it's just this.
Yep.
They stay on the shot as if Ricky's going to come into frame.
Something's
And it's
going to
just
happen.
like-
But nothing happens. And it's very odd.
I think the editor took a phone call at that moment. It was like, is this where I should cut? And he goes, the score is so insanely erratic, where it's really competent and it sounds like a good synth score of the time. And then there's other times it's just so bad. This part, it's so bad.
Whoa, whoa. I feel he's here.
Now our mentally incapacitated Ricky,
Yep.
we're
becomes a
expected to
tactician.
believe that
There we go.
he's like, I'm gonna get up in this tree and I'm gonna wait because eventually they're gonna walk past.
Is there a tree though? It doesn't look like there's a tree.
No, it was probably a ladder that he jumped off of.
He was on the roof of something.
It's not the most skillfully choreographed fight sequence.
No.
Go back to the
Oh.
house. I'm sacrificing
And he's
myself.
Stabbed.
Stabby, stabby.
Yep. Oh no.
Totally, I'll be there for the audition. It's kind of nasty how the blood went into his ear. But
Oh no. Yay! Oh, it's not the cop. That's right, because we left him behind.
It's the doctor.
It's the doctor.
Once again, a world of coincidence. He just happens to drive up at that moment.
Yeah, he's not a killer. He just has a bloody knife in his hand for no reason, standing over the body of somebody that he might have not killed.
This is Richard Beymer's attempt to be Dr. Loomis in Halloween 4. Michael, leave those people alone.
Because you just saw her run in that direction.
I don't know why it's so important for him to hear this tape and why it distracts him to this point. He turns into Captain Obvious. She woke you up, right? It's like, yeah, we kind of got that idea, man. Nothing else. We saw it in Halloween 4.
I will say, though, the way his face is now. He's like,
That is a great reaction. That is
Right?
like, you just really fucking stabbed me, didn't you?
there it is. But I said you weren't a killer. Oh, you're proving me wrong.
That expression is also the same that you make when you step on your
Yay.
child's Lego.
Look at the sloshing brain juice.
And of course, it's not a direct connection in any way, shape, or form, but I do find it cute how a movie filled with Twin Peaks people, the lead characters, they are. I don't know. You're the one who can supposedly see the future. Twin Peaks in a pod? What? Sorry. You're not the only one hurting. I won't get that D anymore. So he tears through the door that he could have torn through earlier. Once again, the movie is so hiding from the fact that it's a sequel to a movie about killer Santa Clauses. I really wish he had donned a Christmas Santa Claus suit by now. That would have looked cool, seeing him in the outfit and everything. Even if we had to have the Christmas hat partially over his dome.
You're a jerk, Laura. She's like, I'm sorry I was mean to you. I'm only saying this because I feel guilty for sending you to your doom.
Again, her powers, they're all over the board because it's like, okay, so you can see the future, but you don't see it at the right times. And if you do see the future, you don't tell the people about the future.
Oh,
That is a great shot, though. I think what they did was it was real time as he grabbed her hand, and I think they sped the film up for the pulling underneath because it had an uncanny kind of look to it once she gets pulled.
well, regardless of how they pulled it off.
Yeah, it looked good. It looked really nice.
And there was a lot of clearance underneath that.
Yeah, that bit's kind of high off the ground. Of course, maybe that's how it was back in the day. We've gone back to that, right? A lot of beds are actually high off the ground, so you can store stuff underneath them.
But you would have been able to see, like,
Oh,
him
him?
underneath the
Oh,
bed.
yeah.
Just da-da-da. His big old chrome dome staring you in the face.
Yeah, they could have at least made the blanket hang lower to cover a portion of it.
Something.
A lot of sitting in a finale, I'm telling you. This is a good shot. That framing indicated they remembered they were making a slasher movie. It's like, shouldn't the killer be just sitting right there? Oh, yeah.
Let me bite my hand.
It is kind of bizarre.
Stop me from screaming.
Mr. Hellman, I was thinking, wouldn't it be great if I like bit my finger because I'm trying not to scream? Whatever. We got like a day left. We got to get this thing done. We start editing tomorrow. Just kind of expression like she smelled something bad. Her nostril even moved. Then again, what is his motivation? He wants to kill her. He loves her. It's like, what is happening?
We don't know.
I got your nose. You see, he seems like, he seems so calm with her touch.
Until she touches.
I don't know why the dome made her scream. It's like, this dude just killed your brother, his girlfriend, and your grandma, but that makes you scream. He's like, oh.
If anything else, like feel around a little more because you don't know what it looks like.
Look at him. He's like, we're gonna play it like that, are
Tell me you like my hat.
we? It's wearing a hat. Gotta get to that door.
He crashed through the downstairs door, but he's not willing to barrel through that one.
Bill Moseley's got some big damn hands, though. Did you see that hand? Holy shit, it's huge.
Yeah. Oh, there he is.
Stupid door.
She's not in here.
I wonder if he gets residual checks from this movie. I got another $1 from Silent Night, Deadly Night 3. Well, we watched it twice on Movie Sphere, so I'm sure that'll generate at least $1 for him. And there we go. Score goes to So Bad again.
This is chase music.
It sounds like music on a Super Nintendo game when you're running through hallways or something.
Don't knock the Super NES games. Those classics are...
I decided to use my rejected score from Contra for Silent Night, Deadly Night 3.
Say what you will. Contra was so much better than this.
They never made a Contra movie. Sideverge.
They don't need to. I don't want them to.
Contra was just kind of a rip-off of Predator anyways. The cover, he looked just like Arnie.
Yeah,
his gun.
Oh, there's the rat. Oh, scare, knocking over stuff.
I had no idea you were down there. Thank goodness.
Our psychic bond was not was disconnected.
I also like how his jacket looks like the kind that like Cholos wore back in the day when it's a balmy 68 degrees in Los Angeles. And now Granny's become Obi-Wan Kenobi. It's like they're setting up a whole movie series that'll never happen with Laura solving crimes and helping people and shit.
It's not a curse, it's a gift.
Better watch out the series.
Oh my God. Oh yeah, she's there already.
It's like you're trying to bring in this character motivation and insight on her ability, like literally in the last frames of the movie. Granny, can you hear me? Do you want to build a snowman? Boxes, so many empty boxes.
Granny's kind of a hoarder.
I like the wood crate there. That's cool. His shoes look like those really lightweight jogger shoes that you buy nowadays. Pinata. I like how she knew where the light was.
That's why she had to feel it with the stick. Because she's like, I'm going to turn this light off in a way that means you can't turn it back on.
Her preparation to do battle with this guy is nothing. Is nothing compared to Night Ride on the Street movie trap scene. Is all I'm saying. Good shot. That looks good. He'd look better in a Santa suit. Just saying.
Use your psychic connection.
He looks like Devo in that shot. I can't, no. No. You're not going to get away from me that quickly, even as I move so slowly. I haven't seen a stick get broken that well since Harrison Ford and Raiders of the Lost Ark.
He's not dead.
It's like the producers requested this. They're like, this is the part of the movie where the guy who you thought was dead shows up, and the whole audience is going to be like, wow, you're alive. And then he's going to say something cool. What's he going to say? Is it live or is it memory? Nice fall, though. Now, usually the way they do a shot like that, they have a rig, a harness hooked up to him, and it snaps him back. But I couldn't see that in that frame, so I don't know how they pulled that off, but it looked good.
Oh.
Because, when I've shot a guy and he slowly gets up, my first inclination is to watch him walk over to me.
So that he can kill me a second time. This is messed up. This is the worst. Oh, man. He is dying for real.
I gotta say, though, I am glad that Bill Moseley finally found a place for himself in the world of horror. Again, he played Johnny in the Night of the Living Dead remake, and then, of course, became Otis Firefly in the Rob Zombie series.
Uh-oh. He's slowly lumbering towards you.
Are you going to be able to get away? I don't know.
Well, she is blind. She can't know where he is exactly, but she can position that damn thing. Oh, Jesus.
Ricky's breaking of the stick was his own doing.
Yep. You totally did that on your own.
Again, so bizarre. It doesn't even play out like a traditional slasher movie. Slasher movies, you have true chasing. And thank God Robert Culp was able to somehow get to the authorities and tell them, hey, we need to get to the Anderson farm.
Mm-hmm. Oh, jeez.
Now, the funny part is Richard's still alive is the funny part here.
I didn't think he was.
Because we were talking about cell phones earlier, fur phones.
And then he died.
Because you see the line, it means two things. Because it's like, don't be stupid because I don't like the idea of cellular phones, but I'm also dead, so it's not going to happen.
The dual meaning.
Ooh.
You could have saved him.
I like how he died, and then seconds later has the cock of the head. Oh.
So I'm confused. All right, I guess I just need to pay better attention to this end portion.
He was still alive because that's why they mention it at the end. You know.
Well, somebody is going into the back of that ambulance, and they said it with whatever.
Yeah, so he must still be alive. He took much less.
See? Okay, so that is Chris.
Yeah, but don't they have him covered?
Covered. Yeah, he's completely
Yeah, see, they
covered.
have his head covered like he's dead.
Or wait, no, they don't.
Was it really Eric Dalry, or did they have a stand-in? Because it doesn't look like him. Like even the body frame seems different. Yeah, see, you don't see the face.
You don't, okay, but he doesn't have it up over.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, we can save this guy. So he is still alive.
Well, like I said, he sustained a lot less damage than the cast of Scream 7, so it's okay. Everybody got stabbed multiple times in that movie and lived.
He only got stabbed once, and then choked.
Yeah. My entire family is like partially dead. One's maybe gonna live.
It's gonna suck when Chris lives and he's like, "Where's Jerry?" I'm sorry, she didn't make it.
We don't even get to see her dead body. We don't even know how she died.
Yeah, she got stabbed. She had a bunch of blood on her chest. So...
Oh, when she got... Well, I mean the actual murder. I'm sorry, that's what I meant.
Oh, okay. You didn't get to see her die.
Yeah, we don't see a scene of horror. Who are you talking to? And then in one of the worst final frames of a horror movie, we're going to break the fourth wall for some apparent reason. By putting Ricky with new hotness kind of tuxedo to proclaim, hey, here we go, slow dissolve, Kubrick dissolve. Is that from the afterlife? Who knows?
Yeah, because he got stabbed with a freaking broomstick handle thing. I don't think he made it.
Now, I will be completely unapologetic in my love for the ending theme from the movie. This was from a period where synth scores were very important to low-budget horror films. And yeah, this has got a cool little theme that I recorded on an audio cassette at the time so I could listen to it again. There's the guy who got credit for editing, even though he didn't do the actual editing. So that was Silent Night, Deadly Night, Part 3. Better watch out. What did you think of it compared to Part 2?
I don't like it. I don't like it.
Not even a little bit. There's just not a moment, a little nuance. Were you happy you at least saw it to go, okay, yeah, I saw Part 3.
Yes, I will say that to at least critique something, you have to see it at least once.
Agreed.
Maybe twice, just so that you can definitely know for sure if you don't like something. This I don't like because it felt erratic. Everything was all over the place. You didn't really get to see Ricky and or feel what his motivation was for anything. Unlike in Part 2, you know what his motivation is. He's just trying to be normal guy, and he has this trauma in his past that comes up, and it comes up in a terrible way. But here, with his coma,
Bill Moseley didn't get to add anything to the character. He didn't really get to be a character at all. Unless you want to count, just shambling around like, oh, look at me. He didn't get to do a lot, unfortunately. But,
yeah, and I wasn't really jazzed by the Laura character.
I think the cast at that point kind of falters. I think if they had found someone else to play Laura who could
No.
competently play the character, maybe there
It's
could
not
be something
that.
to it.
I don't even think it was her performance that kind of pitted me against her. I just don't like the character.
Yeah, I agree.
There's nothing really redeemable about her. She's very, oh, poor orphan me, and I'm blind, so I have this that I have to deal with. My parents are gone, and her and her brother basically have this great relationship where they get to rely on one another and or hold each other up. And they even have their grandma, who apparently is a really wonderful lady. So she's just kind of whiny for whiny's sake. And the fact that she has this supernatural psychic power that her grandma has even told her she has kind of makes me not like her. Because it's, why are you being bitchy? There's no reason for you to be bitchy. And even in the end, you don't see that she comes to grips with, oh, I have this power, let me use it for good. She doesn't. There's no indication that she's going to.
If I had time on my hands to where it literally, if I was an established filmmaker right now, I'm like, you know what I'm going to do for the next month? What? I'm going to rewrite Silent Night, Deadly Night 3 and just make it coherent. Just so people could, hey, I read your script. It's really good. It's too bad they didn't make that movie. That would have been fun.
At least make it to where things are coherent, right? More likable characters. That would be my asking. Make the characters more likable so that I give a damn when these things are happening to them. Especially Ricky. I wished that he was more sympathetic in whatever it is that what his motivations
trying
were.
to accomplish. Exactly. Where I guess you could argue in part 2, he really is trying to have a normal life.
Yes.
Actually, both in part 1 and part 2, the kids are trying to have a normal, stable life, but this pesky thing called Christmas and a bunch of Santa Claus related trauma ruins them every time.
Yes.
That and the color red.
That's the triggering thing. And I get it. It's what makes a movie. But I think that's what made those ones better or more enjoyable on an entertainment level. This isn't very enjoyable to me. And I'm glad I watched it. That's probably going to be the end of it.
And speaking of the color red triggering people, you guys need to track down a movie called Super Fuzz that I saw as a kid. Super Fuzz is actually the Italian or the American title for this Italian import, where a cop gets superpowers and his Achilles heel is when he sees the color red, he loses his powers.
Oh, dang. He's normal now.
And that's a much better and entertaining movie than Silent Night, Deadly Night 3 in the long run.
Okay.
You got Ernest Borgnine as a cop. That's awesome. He's not the super cop, though.
Oh, he's not. Okay. He's not the super fuzz.
Yeah, he's the partner.
Still worth a watch.
But I digress. I hope you enjoyed our commentary for Silent Night, Deadly Night 3 for the holidays, and we will see you on the next one.
Bye.